Hello, and if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are Remarkist, communities of fans who watch television shows and movies together virtually, but as if we're in the same room, gathered around the same television. We do this using the Clubhouse app, and we would love to have you join us for future watches. You can simply make an account on Clubhouse and search for our name Remarkist to find our club. Or if you'd like more information about the project as a whole, please visit remarkist.com to learn lots more about who we are and what we do. As for our recordings, remember that we always get our episodes started but paused at the 0-second mark and count down to pressing the play button together at the same time. That way, our experience can be as synced up as possible. You can pause this for a moment to get that set up, or if you're ready to go, let's get this thing started.
I'm going to record. I am starting the recording now, and we're about to all hit our play button on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'm back to HD ratio, which is nice.
I just find this scene really funny because, like, she had no clothes the day that, like, Rory was, like, going to children. Like, she had nothing reasonable, but, like, she's got all of those things in her closet.
compassionate side in this episode.
Okay, what is that side door?
I was just thinking the same thing. I've never noticed that before. What? I just always assumed she came in the front.
I don't think I've ever seen that before either.
What?
I think it's only in like 2 episodes or something like that.
Wait, is that that's the back door?
No, it's always been there. It's just
They're in the living room.
how it leaves or like where it leads to in the out.
How weird we've all collectively noticed it at the same time.
The poor boy does nothing like being a teenager and is called out all the time. It's so embarrassing. I think it's not okay for the teacher to say that.
I agree with that.
Yeah, he's just calling her. He's just being called out because he's looking at Rory. Is that the idea?
Yes, he's just called out because he's looking. He's not disturbing. He's not saying anything. Why call him out?
To her, he's not paying attention, so that's why she did it, but I don't agree with it.
That Madeline character is a trip. Did she call Paris grandma?
I think that was a Little Red Riding Hood reference.
Ah, got it.
But not great. Agreed.
It's it's 340.
I thought it was because of how uptight she was, but the Little Red Riding Hood reference makes it a lot more.
She did a Rumpelstiltskin reference as well because she did with the pricking of a thumb, something wicked this way comes.
That is a well-drawn sign. How old was Rory when she began drinking coffee? Has anybody ever asked that question?
Probably straight out of the womb, knowing Lorelai.
I'm not sure, but I know that in real life, Alexis Bledel does not like coffee at all. So she was the only one that faked drinking it during the show.
Whoa. It's hard for me to see that front of Lorelai's house and just not think about the parking lot that's just to the left of it where I parked my car to arrive on set. So this is feeling like a town episode, which I like. That's some other information that I did not know. So
they haven't been living in this house for that long. They've only been here for 5 years. Rory moved in when she was 11, so they lived somewhere else before.
Yeah, but they still live in Stars Hollow, just somewhere else. I don't know if you know it yet, so I don't want to spoil you.
Yeah, no, it's not said. It's you'll find out later.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
I didn't want to be the one.
I just really had no idea.
I was
so
gonna say it, but I was like, has it been addressed yet?
no awkwardness between Paris and Lorelai with the whole kiss thing that happened at the school.
She's probably too busy thinking about Luke's behavior, I think.
Does Lorelai ever find out that it was Paris who told everyone in the school? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think Rory mentions it right away that Paris saw them kissing.
No spoiler.
I think
Well,
Lorelai's
that happened
very
in old
forgetting.
episodes.
Oh no, that already
That
happened.
already happened.
And also,
Okay.
I was actually thinking more about like Paris not kind of making any, I don't know.
I always forget that Sookie nose look longer than Lorelai.
Yeah, that's really wild. For me, I feel like I mean, I came into the show, all of these characters knew each other for so long. I'm learning all of this now. I didn't realize that. Yeah, I didn't realize that some of these relationships are relatively new-ish.
I always thought that was very sweet and sacrificial of Lorelai to do that.
I always wonder, was that Sookie's ticket? And she just said, yeah, I give away Sookie's ticket.
I was going to say the same thing, Claudia, that I'm like, wait, what about Sookie? She was excited to go. And did Lane
Yeah, that does
say
seem
she couldn't
a bit
go?
sacrificial.
Just generally right in here. I actually prefer the nosebleeds, personally. I find too close to the stage a little claustrophobic. Babsy is the opposite. Is this the first like musical guesty thing that happens in the show? Because musical people come through the show a lot. I would say this is sort of the first official like big band that comes through.
I think they are.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then I also looked up that the Bengals, they broke up in the 80s, but then they got back together for a reunion tour the same year that season 1 was premiered. So I always thought that was interesting that they chose them to perform.
I mean, doesn't Lorelai make a reference to the Bengals in an earlier episode? I think you shouldn't tell.
I mean, this is just a good example of just how much the writers just loved or love music, just giving us a concert. The episode has just become a concert.
My inner 80s child is like ecstatic. This is like probably one of my favorite episodes of all time. And to have it like with the Bengals, it's just insane. Love it.
Yeah.
But even with going to see the Bengals, Lorelai can't get over Luke's ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, this Rachel character also had no idea that anything like that even existed in the show. I wonder if she's a character that we'll meet. God, this is awesome. This is so awesome. This is a full-on concert, Bengals concert.
I love Paris for saying no.
Yeah, me too. I love that.
But the first time we really see her, just kind of let her guard down a bit.
And did Paris not know the Bengals? Like the way she said that sounds like she'd never heard of them before.
That's the impression I get.
I'm curious to see like what kind of music Paris would be into around this time.
I really start liking Paris in this episode.
Yeah, same.
Me too.
Skippy likes the hamster.
Awesome. Double awesome.
So great.
T messaged me saying she thought you'd like that bit.
I love Lorelai is really behaving like a mother here.
That definitely would have been my mom.
My mom has done that to my friends.
So not really a town episode. Not a pure town episode.
No, more of an off the cuff episode.
Yeah. So well, did it just
Starts replaying the next episode.
it just started with the next episode? Is Dean in the next episode?
Yeah, Netflix goes a little bit faster than TV.
Yeah. Okay, let me just get out of here. No, out of here completely. I'm just getting so used to those DVDs. All right, I'm actually holding my other phone now because otherwise Instagram Live was about to lose me. There we go. So thoughts. Oh, and by the way, anybody who's in the audience that wants to come on up onto the couch with us, the couch just magically got longer and there are more cushions available. Sorry, what were you saying?
Sorry about that. I was just going to say that I really love this episode because it gives us the first real glimpse of Paris and Rory's friendship. As we see, up to this point, they've really been nothing but enemies, competing over grades, and, at least in Paris's mind, Tristan. But at the Bengals concert, Paris kind of lets her guard down and actually smiles, and even tells Rory, I think this is the best night that I've ever had, which I thought was really endearing. So I love seeing their friendship form. I'd be willing to bet that this is Paris's first concert too.
It feels like
Hey,
the first anything.
Hey, Cara. Cara, I'm trying to actually bring you up on to the couch here, but for whatever reason, I keep hitting the invite button and it just doesn't let you, or you're not seeing it. I'm going to try invite. Oh, there you go. Now you're up there. Hi, Cara. Hello. Hi. I'm sorry. Continue. Who was speaking?
Oh, it was me, but I was just saying it feels like Paris's first, anything outside of her world, outside of that kind of Chilton and rich world. It feels like her first thing outside of it.
Yeah, I mean, though her reaction to the Bangles was hilarious. She's like, I really like this band. She was really focused.
Yeah, and this is the first time that you see her go away from her friends and be like, well, I'm not happy with what they're doing, but I'm enjoying myself. It's good.
Yeah, I wouldn't even really classify Madeline Louise as her friends. She's just got a little posse that she has somehow developed a higher status there at the school and bosses them around, but they don't really feel like her friends.
Yeah, I would agree. It seems like Madeline and Louise seem kind of like the typical friends that you stay friends with out of obligation, from elementary school or sometime earlier in life. And then they kind of stick around much longer, than maybe they should. But due to shared history and even just the awkwardness that comes with actually ending a friendship, they stay right by her side and they're very loyal and also non-threatening to her, because they're beautiful, but they're not as smart as Paris is. So I think she just sees them as not being threatening, but also just being like I said, kind of loyal and staying, true to the friendship. And but whereas with Rory, she almost poses a direct threat to Paris, and so it's kind of an interesting dynamic I think we see between all four of them.
Yeah, it's like they've been at Chilton with her forever, and now Rory's this new person coming in, and her dynamic with Rory is completely different than the people that she's been able to be with all of these years, all the time that she's been at Chilton since, I guess, elementary school.
I think Paris is kind of like the third wheel sometimes, and it probably was dawning on her that, oh wait, I could have an ally in Rory because we're kind of the same. And I think she's just kind of suffered them lightly.
I think money sticks together, so they seem to all have a lot of money behind it, so they probably are expected to be like friends.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting that what Diane says, that I think Paris has liked having them around her because I think that they make Paris feel better about herself, because she obviously is a lot more driven and a lot more intelligent, and so I think she's liked having them there because she feels better about herself. And then Rory comes along, and I think Rory is probably the first person that she's recognized as potentially a true counterpart, or as a true equal. And she feels very threatened at first. And I think we're now starting to see that switch where
Paris is starting to see that maybe it's good to have that quote unquote pace horse in your life, and that Rory can perhaps push her to do more and to be better, and that it might be a valuable friendship to her.
Yeah, I actually think that Paris doesn't really, I don't think that she's really classified anyone as friends there. I think that's what's making this whole Rory thing so complicated for her, because I think that she's actually starting to experience things that only friends do, right? Like the way that Rory talked to her after the kiss, or Rory giving up her what in one of the early episodes, didn't Rory give up something, not that when she admitted that she was the one who destroyed her science project. These are just things that Paris is not really used to, because that's just not the way, that's not the relationship she's had with everyone. The way she sees it, this is like kind of a dog eat dog world, right? And you have to claw your way up to the top, to the top of the pyramid. Somebody on Instagram Live actually said that they don't actually see Madeline and Louise as real friends, because there was that scene where when Paris was sort of the talk of the town, and they were like fully talking behind her back, which is just not really what friends do. But I would imagine that Paris kind of accepts that that's just the way it is at Chilton, and that's part of what makes her really hard there at Chilton.
I work a lot with teenagers in my life, and it's how teenage girls are. They talk behind their backs, and the next time everything is okay. It's so teenage-like. It's just not something we remember as adults.
Yeah, but I mean, that's true. But I think that also friendship, well, at least here, I don't know how it is in Germany. Babsy and I talk a lot about the difference between the U.S. and Germany, and how free we are with the word friend, or good friend. I don't know how much how many of the relationships that we have at that age really are best to classify as friends, and not just sort of part of that whole high school quasi acquaintance and social, just.
Yeah, it's different. We have in Germany a word for friends and another word for acquaintances. It's completely different, but I still think teenagers are like having their emotions high, up and down every day. They don't think a lot about it, and Madeline and Louise were just for the gossip, so they didn't mean it to be mean, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I work with teenagers, and I see this, because I work in a secondary school. I see this all the time. It's just like whoever's cool at that moment, that's who you want to hang out with, or
right.
The gossip goes, you go.
Totally. I mean,
see a lot.
And I get that. I experienced that as well. But there were friends that I had that were really, truly friends that I spent time with, despite the fact that they weren't particularly cool and didn't elevate my social status in any way. I just knew them perhaps, outside of school. Maybe they lived on my block and we developed a relationship there. And I just don't think that Paris has ever experienced anything like that before. She's never had anybody like that. And Rory, of course, who has always had something like that, right, with her mother, is so natural at being that kind of a person and being that kind of a friend. And that's like really throwing Paris off.
But they don't talk all openly. They just talk Madeline and Louise to each other. So I think it's more like talking between friends. It's not like openly being mean. That's the difference. Rory was just walking by coincidence by them. And
yeah, I agree that I don't think that Paris has had the opportunity to develop that type of friendship level. I think that she's always been more about like the academic side of, you know, making sure she studies for the exams, making sure that she does all the things that she's supposed to, because like it's almost like she's doing a walking commentary when she's going through the halls of the apartment complex and saying like, I wonder if my mom would, you know, look for me if I were missing, or at least she would send somebody. And, you know, it's like she's observing and seeing Rory on a personal level for the first time and getting to know her and really appreciating her.
Do you think that okay, so you think she's appreciating it? Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think all the girls are like experiencing something different because their parents are like the rich parents and they have the nannies and all the staff, and I don't think that they're like not used to a mom who is going to actually like go knock down doors and go find them. I mean, half the time they don't even see their mom or their dad.
Thank goodness that they said something to Rory, though. You know, at least one of them said something to Rory so that this way they knew where to go. Because can you imagine? New York is so big. Any random party in New York and you had no idea where to go, that would be terrifying.
Yeah, and you see Rory right away is like uncomfortable with the fact that they're not telling them where they are or where they're going. And Paris may not be as used to it as Rory is, but Rory knows right away that like, oh, we need to contact somebody or let somebody know that something is going on.
Have any of you ever in your teens like did something crazy like that? Like actually like
I never did. I was like the Rory of the group. I hung out with people like Madeline and Louise. Because I went to
that would like go to a big city, you know, as a teenager, go to like figure their way to a big city.
I'm just outside of London. So I'm literally just outside of London. So my friends would like all try and get up to London, and like they had like under 16 clubs, which I've not seen these in years, but like they had like under 16 clubs, and I remember they would all go up to the clubs and drinking their alcohol, and I'm like, it was a big thing around this area because I'm literally just outside of London, so like I'd see it all the time.
Yeah, we had those in the US. I don't know if they still exist. I remember during the night.
I've not seen them in a very long time.
Back in the 80s and 90s, I was obsessed. But
I think it's really interesting to hear about your teenage years because I have it all before me because I'm 13, so it's crazy.
Oh.
I mean, I know it's like Amy lives down in London, where I live. I'm from the north, so it's very different. Like,
oh, so different.
House parties here were like the rage when you're a teen. Like from age 12 up until leaving school, it's all about alcohol at the house parties and police raids and stuff like that. So
the true north-south divide.
Wow.
There's a proper north-south divide over here, and that sums it all up in a sentence.
I have a question for the room. Why do you think that Paris does like Tristan?
Honestly, I think it's one of those like crushes that you get when you're younger, and you then like she doesn't see him like she just, you know, like she said, really doesn't see him the way Rory sees him. She's putting all of these earlier years like on, you know, onto it. It's all like layered, and as he's maybe grown up and become kind of a jerk or become kind of, you know, whatever, she doesn't really see that, and she's just kind of holding on to this like youthful fantasy, you know, maybe when he was like the only cute guy in class or something like that.
for her, they've been in the same school for so long that for her, he's a status symbol. He's the guy that everybody always wanted to be with when she was in school. And Rory doesn't see him that way because Rory's new there. And to Rory, he's just this annoying guy. But to Paris, he's this guy that's been around since they were kids, and
always and he always had that that beautiful boy, all the girls have a crush on him type thing going.
So Rory doesn't see him that way because she hasn't been there as long as the rest of them have been.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You also think
Jessica's point. Oh, sorry. Who was speaking? They can go ahead.
I was just going to say, I also think it's because he never gives Paris the attention, so in some sense it might make her want him more because he looks at everyone but her.
Right, and I was going to say too, like, I think she mentions to Rory after the Bengals concert that he kissed her, albeit on a dare, but he still kissed her nonetheless when they were in like grade school. I think she's in 6th grade, I want to say. So I think like because of that, I think she still has those rose-colored glasses and she's like enamored with him. And any attention that he gives her, and she had fully admits, like, I know that he's flirting with me just to get to you, but he's still flirting with me. It's something. Something's better than nothing.
I think, Emma, you had microphone flashing, didn't you, for a while? Emma?
Yeah, I did. Sorry. Now I'm trying to unmute myself because I'm having technical issues. Well, first of all, good morning, guys. I finally made it to an after hours episode. I am very
Good morning, Emma.
I was late, but I made it. No, but I agree. I think I agree with what everybody said about Paris. I think she has put all of the years that she's known Tristan into it. So, she's known him since he was a little kid. I remember having crushes like that when I was that age, when I knew people for so long, when I knew a guy from when I was little, and like I put all of those feelings of knowing them for so long into that. And so I definitely think, and like I forget who said it, but when Paris said, I know he's fully flirting with me to get to you, but at least he's giving me some attention. Like, I feel bad for Paris in that moment because you start to realize, like, oh wow, Paris isn't as horrible as like she seems. Like, she has a rough life. She doesn't get the attention from guys because she is so, closed off, and she is so like hard on the outside. But I think from this episode you start to see that like she is a normal girl. I mean, yeah, she has her moments, of course, but like appreciating Lorelai coming to look for the girls, like you start to realize like, oh, maybe she doesn't have a great home life, like, so I really just kind of felt for Paris in this episode for the first time, because you kind of really get to see a different side of her. And this is also one of my favorite episodes, not just because of the Bengals, because I grew up on the Bengals, but I loved getting to see the friendship between Paris and Rory Bloom, because like you said earlier, like Madeline and Louise aren't really friends. They're just kind of like there because Paris has been with them, her whole school life, and Rory doesn't really know them really as friends. She's just acquaintances with them. But this is the first time you see Paris and Rory kind of start to build that friendship, and I really love that.
For me, it's about a little bit falling in love with a bad boy. It's like Tristan is a rich bad boy in school, and he's like the one like some girls want to have, and that's so typical for teenage girls to fall in love with a bad boy, and they actually know they don't get him, and he's not good for them anymore, but they still want him.
Not to be confused with the bag boy.
Bag boys, bag boys.
For seasons.
John, what are you thinking about Tristan staring at Rory during class time and, trying to wedge his way in and, asking, flirting with Paris and saying goodbye to everybody but Rory? Like, what are your thoughts on that whole exchange?
Well, now I feel like I have a slightly different perspective given this whole backstory of of him, being a part of this world, the school world since they were kids, and being the golden child, right? Like the beautiful blonde boy that everybody loved. So I'm guessing that he has that has come to define him, that's how he sees himself, as just like the boy everybody wants, and the best boy, right? And that's part of why he can't stand Dean, and that's why it's driving him crazy that Rory is the first person that is not honoring that status that he has. And so I think his staring at Rory, I think that he's partly fascinated with her, but also annoyed with her.
Do you think he's authentically interested in her, or do you think he's only interested because she's not reciprocating that?
Yeah, I think that he's only interested. I think he's only interested as far as his ego goes. I think that his ego has been shaped by his looks and his status amongst the rest of the class, and it's been going for a long time. It's been going since they were children, like little kids, elementary school. And so that's just such a big ego that cannot be damaged without it really seriously affecting him. That's why his behavior with Dean was just absolutely bonkers. It was so ridiculous. But now, with that as context, it makes total sense that he would have gone to that absolute extreme. Like he just absolutely cannot stand the idea that he would not retain that status. With it.
He can't stand the fact that there's somebody now with her.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that's really leading him. I don't think that he necessarily has any authentic feelings for Rory. At least that's not what it seems like at this point. That could change, but as of right now, that doesn't feel like that's what's leading him. I don't know. What do you think, T?
I would agree. I think that he's more ego-driven in the sense of, like Paris, for example, she enjoys him. It's not because he's, shown himself at this point to be highly intelligent or anything like that, or, aside from having a nice face, but she has that backstory, that back history where she's enjoyed him when he was younger, perhaps before the ego and the hormones kicked in. So she sees him probably with a different light than what Rory coming in and meeting him for who he is right now sees him. And it seems like most of the girls, that we've heard talk about Tristan have that ideal. What do you ladies think? And John, what do you think about Luke's interaction with how he responded after seeing the sweatshirt?
I actually thought it was a little over the top, personally. But just that moment seemed a little much. But I get it. I mean, I don't reaction at what's going on there. I'm eager to meet this Rachel character, and to get a sense for who would be messing with his, who would have really gotten into his heart as much as this person has. I thought that the moment itself was a little over the top. I would have imagined in that situation that he would have just like walked away, you know.
I think a lot of it too, though, is because it was Lorelai that picked it. If it were anyone else, he may not have reacted the same way.
That's
Maybe.
exactly what I was going to say, because like once Sookie explains where the hoodie came from, it's kind of like to him, it's the person he was so in love with and the person that he's like pining after, kind of colliding. And in his head, Luke seems like the type of guy who just cannot process stuff like that and cannot handle stuff like that. And I think he was just like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah,
I think it was just unfortunate.
I just would have expected him to at least ask some questions there first, you know, like, hey, where'd you get that? And, you know, do you know what that is? You know what I mean? Like, he just sort of just explodes as if she would know any of that.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I know that he has like a short fuse anyway, but I would have liked it to have played out a little bit differently. Like, maybe like just staring at her, not saying anything, and then saying,
exactly.
Oh, where'd you get that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's. I mean, like, I get the emotion. I get how that would be really frustrating or especially the Lorelai. It just was like, whoa, okay, a little abrupt. You know, I think that that I would imagine that situation playing out a little differently. You know, even with such heightened emotions, a little bit like what Tiffany's saying, like, you know, staring at it, asking a question, maybe, you know, tentatively, because I mean, how could she ever have known that? Like, and that's pretty easy to know, right? Like, anyway.
Yeah, I have to wonder if it's almost a bit deeper, because I mean, I can't remember how long ago they said that Rachel was there, but he's been holding on to this sweater for a long time. And so we have to consider, like, why did he suddenly just decide now is the time to
it had to be at least 5 years.
Sweater? Yeah, so, and you know, we just saw in last episode that there was 2 occasions he tried to ask Lorelai out and got interrupted and then, you know, kind of chickened out. And so I think, like, in his head, him getting rid of that sweater was almost him trying to take a step forward to move on, and that he is really recognizing that Lorelai
it had to be 5 years, didn't it?
Yeah. You know, that Lorelai is somebody that he really is interested in. And so I think in his head, like, the sweater was a really big deal of him kind of letting go of that. And so then the fact that I think it was all about the fact that it was on Lorelai's body, that it's like, oh my God, I'm trying to like let go of Rachel and you know, and maybe look at doing something with Lorelai, and now here's Lorelai wearing Rachel's sweater. And I think he just, in that moment, he just couldn't process it at all.
For me, if I think Lorelai was his crush, and his crush wearing like clothes of his ex was such a shock. It's like we all, if we're in a shock, we don't act rationally, we act emotionally, and his whole no wasn't against Lorelai, it was just to process the shock, seeing them both together, both of his like girls.
Yeah, I mean, I'll accept that. I mean, it doesn't bother me that much. I just doesn't he start off by just saying like, get that off, get that out of here? Like, doesn't he say something like that?
No, he asks her like, what the hell is wrong with you?
What the hell is wrong with you? Like, take that off. Take that off. And she's like, what? Take what off? Like, it's so. I mean, I'm gonna accept this idea that, you know, when something really big happens, your brain sort of, you know, short circuits and you don't think rationally and you do really weird things. Just gut wise, it felt a little over the top, but I can accept that, like, you know, that in some realm of possibility, you know, that could happen. And he could be as irrational as that. I mean, that is what happened in the episode, so I have to accept that that's what happened.
I think Nikki did a really great job of explaining and like putting eloquently into words like what the significance behind that was, because as we have known about Luke, like he's not really a person who likes change. And like I'm thinking back to the scene where he's in the hospital with Emily and they're sitting outside of Richard's like room, and he's saying like, oh, like I kept like my father's hardware store the same way it was. Like I turned it into a diner, but everything inside is mostly still the same. And we see that he has the Williams hardware store sign still hanging above like the diner. So to finally give away the sweatshirt after like 5 or 6 years to someone that he was completely enamored with, because the way that Sookie was describing Rachel, Lorelai like sees it as like, oh, she's Wonder Woman, and then Sookie says like to Luke, she was Wonder Woman. Like she was this like this heroine, just this complete badass of a woman. And so for him to hang on to it all these years and for Luke to never really leave Stars Hollow and kind of keep things the same, like this was very significant. And so that's why I can kind of understand like the explosion and that reaction. Again, like as Nikki eloquently explained it.
So yeah, I love the idea that, you know, he's freaking out only just because of it being on Lorelai's body and just having to process that and let go and, you know, come through of like, oh wait, this is my new love interest, but she's wearing my ex's stuff. Like, get that off. Okay, so with Lorelai, in the beginning episodes, like we were not exactly loving her parenting style, you know, to a T, or at least I wasn't. But like I feel like as the episodes continue, she like evolves as a character in her position as a mom. And so I feel like this episode was really telling as far as like her blossoming with her role as that mom. What are your thoughts on her parenting styles at this point, John?
Oh, I mean, I thought that this episode was great. I said it in the last episode that I was already starting to feel like, well, either Lorelai is maturing as a parent, or this has always been there, but we sort of came into the story at a very particular point where we didn't get to see it as much. Either way, starting, I'd say, in the last episode with the stuff about you know, the parent code of not lying, and you know, and all of that stuff, finding Rory and Lane at the movie theater together. That's where things started to really shift for me in terms of Lorelai and her parenting, and that was the even more so. I also feel like with Max out of the way, this is weird. I feel like with Max out of the way, she doesn't have that distraction, that thing that because I think that Max was actually making her parenting skills worse, because she was sort of caught up in being a girl again, you know, and having this romance that she just hadn't experienced in so long. And I think that being a girl again sort of took away a bit from her ability to see situations like a mother. I don't know, that's how I was feeling. Anyway, to answer your question, yeah, I'm feeling like like these last 2 episodes were really strong for me in terms of Lorelai. Like I really have come to really love that character in these past few episodes. Probably even, probably actually starting with the episode with Richard, with the scare with Richard, in that moment in his bedroom or in his hospital room with the silence between them and what I feel like something clicked there.
I was going to make mention that I think like the past episode that we saw, like the episode before and this episode, I think it shows a transformation, like Lorelai's parenting, and that the progress isn't linear per se. What was I going to say? When she tells Rory that she can't break that mom code and lie to Mrs. Kim like that, but like that was great and all, but then we have it in this episode where she's calling Lane stupid because she decided to tell her mom the truth because that she wanted to go to the Bengals concert and now she can't go. So she was expecting Lane to lie. So again, we kind of see that regression.
Right. Yeah, that's
in
cool.
the same thing too. We see like she kind of comes back again and she kind of makes up for it as she reprimands Madeline and Louise and like explains like what you guys did was idiotic, like that was not safe at all, and she really kicked it into like parent mode there. So again, we kind of see that like push and pull. So it's interesting to kind of like see and what to expect in later episodes in terms of Lorelai's parenting.
When her stress level rises, she starts to take on the traits of her mother. The firmness of her mother, directness, and that Emily's got some good parenting skills. As much as we want to, hate on her overbearing and controlling aspects, she, Lorelai really does take on a lot of Emily in those moments.
Agreed.
Yeah, it's almost as though like when she's going through those high stress times or heightened emotional times that she maybe she's not as calculated as far as so then like she referred to being more like her mother, just out of natural instinct. Possible.
Yeah, and I'm just suggesting that if we're all, or at least some of us are saying that, those moments with Lorelai are her best parenting moments, and those moments are the most similar to her mother, then it must mean that her mother is not that far off in regards to parenting.
I think Emily doesn't deserve the hate she gets. She was actually not a bad mother. She didn't do everything perfect like every other mother, but I think she did a pretty good job.
Yeah, of course. I mean, nobody's perfect.
I also like how they have that same quippy humor, like they have that same sarcastic humor about them, where they're when they have those quick one-liners. I just love it whenever like their funny banter comes out in that way for both Lorelai and Emily.
Me too, but I think it's funny when Emily like gets mad at Lorelai for being like sarcastic and like making a joke or whatever, but yet like she does the same thing. But I think she forgets sometimes maybe that she has the same type of humor. So like I just think it's hilarious that she gets upset with her a lot of the time for being the same way that she herself is.
Yeah, I mean that's the we are our parents thing, we are our parents, we become our parents. It's a sort of a trope, but a truth, I would say.
Well, I think like when we're in the middle of like a stressful situation where you have to react quickly, you kind of go back on what you're used to, and like so she probably does go back on how Emily was, because you're not really thinking things through, you're just kind of like reacting. So you tend to do more of what, how you were raised. Like so many parents, like I know I've done it, and like, oh my God, my mother's voice just came out of my mouth.
Right. What else? I'm still so blown away by the fact that we got a mini Bangles concert in that episode. I mean, it really felt like at times I was just watching a Bangles concert on Netflix.
I absolutely
which was
love that
so
too.
cool. Which was so cool. And it's the first, that's the first big musical act, and the show's known for that. It's known for musical guests coming through and independent of the band, independent of Half Alien. You're like I remember when I was doing the show, not spoil, although I am going to guess looking at the audiences that I'm not going to spoil too many people. I remember hearing when I was on the show, hearing that like on another episode that I wasn't in, the Shins were on the show. And I was like, wait, what? Everybody's like, I don't want to spoil, I'm guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's a really good episode.
Yeah, but I just remember that I'm a huge Shins fan. So I remember being like, how is it that I'm not a part of this episode and like not,
You cannot be part of that episode, I can say that.
No, I know.
You will love it. You will love it.
What are the logistics, John, of like bringing a group like that onto a show?
Oh, like Bangles, for example. Well, I guess that would be probably it would probably have started before the script. It would have probably started, can we do this? Like, could we get the Bangles, right? Or could we get a similar group? By the way, I'm just speaking like based on like the what I've seen, and what I could be wrong on some of this stuff, but this is how I'm feeling based on kind of the osmosis of being around it. The writers or Amy, Dan, they talk about it maybe in a writer's room, or maybe before the season even. Maybe one of them was saying, oh my gosh, we should try to get. And well, this is first season, so it happened probably in the writers' rooms. Before they write that, they would have to find out whether it's even possible. So they'd have to then reach out to the Bangles agents, or maybe they've got like a few bands in mind that they were thinking of, and they're going to see which one's available, or who'd be game to do it. And they, this is first season, so the show doesn't have the reputation yet. So, in later seasons, it has a reputation. So you get bigger folks to come onto the show because they know Gilmore Girls. Maybe they like it. Maybe they've got family that watches it. So this first season, they call the agents. They find out if they're available. They send them the script, and if they say yes, then that they're into it, then they start to craft the episode around that. They already know that it's basically going to be a concert. And then the logistics of making the episode, is just like any other. They I'm guessing that was a set on the lot that they did. They certainly didn't go to a theater anywhere. So that was all created on set, or like on the lot somewhere. And yeah, I mean, the Bangles probably came in and played a little bit, and they shot a little bit of that, and then most of it, they weren't there. Most of it was shot from angles that they didn't need to show them because they weren't around anymore. So like most of their big stuff, they just shot, with them. And just a lot of them, the movie magic happens to make you feel like there are a lot of people in those shots, but they're probably not. Like the the shots where they're close up on the bangles, I would probably guess that they just shot that with hardly anybody there in the room except them.
I've always wondered if like the bands and like the big name bands that go on shows are doing it because they have something to promote, because it always seems like someone had mentioned that the Bangles had like their reunion tour that year. So I wonder if like they also were using it as a way to promote their tour.
Yeah, that's possible. You know, or an album, you know, that's coming out. I mean, that might be why they do it. Maybe that was a part of it. The casting directors would probably have a say in all of that, or they might come up with a good example would be Sebastian. I know that Mara Casey, actually the casting director, saw him. She knew that Amy wanted some like an 80s rock star, you know, who was sort of big in the 80s, but now is, not, right? So, sorry, Sebastian, if you hear this, we all think that you're amazing. But she was watching on VH1 Behind the Music, and she saw him on it, and she said, that guy is really interesting and really funny and really charismatic. So then she went and told Amy, like, hey, we should look at this guy. You know?
I think another example of that is also Grant Lee Phillips, because it gave him the opportunity to really showcase his own music, from his band, Grant Lee Buffalo, as well as his solo career. And I think he had like just released his 10th album or something around that time. And so, of course, he does, acoustic covers for songs like Wake Me Up Before You Go Go and Be True to Your School by the Beach Boys and some of those songs. But I think it also gives him the opportunity to really, show some of his music. So it's just another example that came to mind.
Yeah, I mean, the Amy and Dan and Helen Pye and her husband Dave Rogalski, they I kind of got the impression that they were all like buds, like they were all buds who like went to clubs and like saw bands and saw live acts all the time in their 20s and 30s kind of thing. Like they were all like young friends, in Los Angeles, like going and seeing shows together. And that was like in their blood coming into the show. The whole music thing feels like it's an extension of just their own interests outside of the show. I mean, but that's the way it is, I guess, for any writer is going to bring their interests into the stuff that they're writing about. But it's a very musical show, and like it's a very like nerd music show, right? Like they know a lot about music, and they make sure that their characters like kind of are all musically educated. All of the banter, all the musical banter is stuff that just music nerds would know. In general, like just all of the references are just, that's something I wanted to mention, was that I love how, I mean, I guess I knew this from the scripts that I read on the show, but it's different to really experience it as a viewer, and that is this idea that the writing it always assumes that people are smart enough to get what they're talking about. The number of references are just like, I mean, everything from like there's like a Yogi Bear reference, the picnic baskets in Yellowstone Park. The other day there was the Sylvia Plath lithium reference, which was like totally obscure and completely like you had to be like paying attention to like what she was reading and like know Sylvia Plath and like, you know, and understand what lifting, you know, and like those types of references are like all over the show, and they're just like really big, and they just assume that all of the viewers are smart enough to get it, and I just love that. You know, in a town that is constantly telling creators to imagine that you're speaking to dumb America, you know, or that's like to dumb it down for the, you know, the least common denominator. You know, it's just really refreshing to see a show that's just that's, you know, like I said, I knew a lot of this stuff like intellectually, but like to experience it, to feel like you're, you know, being like they're giving you that much credit to get it. It's cool.
For an international,
Interestingly enough, that Sylvia Plath's book that Rory is reading was actually only first published in 2000. I just Googled
Oh wow.
it.
Oh wow, that's wild.
So when they put it in the show, it was actually like a new book out.
It was a new book, and it was so maybe, yeah, but I mean, even still, right? Like, you know, how many of its viewers were reading it?
Well, exactly. Yeah, the fact that it was a brand new book out. So yeah, anyways, that's an interesting Google find.
For an international watcher of the show, it's actually pretty hard to get most of the references, because so many are typical American, and till today, sometimes I read about it and I said, I have no idea what they mean, even if it
100% agree. I was waiting for someone.
Did you get the Yogi Bear reference?
I didn't understand you, John. You were like, your voice.
Sorry, did you get the Yogi Bear reference?
I actually know the Yogi Bear because I watched it as a kid, but I think only once, so it must be really clear for me to get it. And I'm watching it in English now, and I'm challenged enough to follow the fast English, to think at the same time, oh, that's the pop culture reference, and what do they mean? I think I don't get most of it still till today. And that's why I would never win a trivia in my life.
I also have the side of things that I'm obviously a younger viewer as well. So not only am I international, I'm like also younger. So it's like some things just go right over my head. I've had to do a lot of Googling like the first couple of times I watched the show.
Gosia, did you say that you were how old?
13.
13. How do you feel about the pop culture, like watching the views and everything like that now? Because there's a lot of pop culture reference.
Yeah, I understood like only a half of them. So when I understood the reference, it was so satisfying. I was so proud of myself.
I love that. There's one of the viewers that's on Instagram right now, Cindy. She was sharing one of the sites where there's a French Canadian website on Facebook where it's really interesting because she takes like some of the pop culture references, but then she'll break it down as far as like and including like the information for it and everything. And I just think it's so neat that she's doing that.
There's a guy on TikTok who's doing that as well, and it's basically like all the Gilmore references I didn't understand the first time I watched it, and he does it for friends as well. And I truly believe with shows like this, until like your second or third rewatch, like you really don't get them all. But it's cool seeing like these videos pop up of people now deciphering these pop culture references all these years on. Just proves how like alive that show still is.
For international viewers of American shows, it's kind of interesting because you watch the show and it's still interesting, and every rewatch you get a little bit of more stuff and more stuff, so it never gets tiring to watch it.
It's like a different world, isn't it? It's like America is a whole other world.
Absolutely. It's
I mean,
so
I knew you'd agree with me. It's like, it's not real. I mean, I've never been to the States. I want to go to the States, but watching it on TV, I'm just like, it's like a whole different place.
I learned so much about America through Gilmore Girls fans because I was at the fan fest in 2018, and I talked with so many Gilmore Girls fans, and I often think, oh my God, that is real. That is not just a thing in a movie. I'm shocked. I say it probably every second week. It's so different.
Yeah, I get you on that
different
one.
life in Europe and the USA. The whole everything.
I mean, my dad worked for Mike Bloomberg, so obviously we're quite clued up on America now. But like, it really is completely different.
But I mean, like, even as an American that's like gone through like most of the pop cultural references and everything, like, John, you were mentioning the, you know, why did she call her grandma? Well, it was because she was referencing the Little Red Riding Hood, but then Jessica chimed in and she was saying that there was also the Rumpelstiltskin, and I caught the Little Red Riding Hood, but I glazed right over Rumpelstiltskin. So I feel like there's things like, even, you know, being immersified in the culture and everything, like, things happen so quickly within the show that you're like, wait, what? Did I miss that?
I feel like when I eventually get to the States, I'm just going to be like a lost little puppy and not have a clue what's going on, despite the fact we speak the same language. And I just feel like I'm going to be like this lost little puppy.
For us, I didn't get the pop culture reference. You just say like grandma, probably to someone who has who's not teenage like the other girls. So it fitted even without knowing it's the pop culture reference.
I only got it because I went in school and I know the story.
I think that that's one of the great things about, you know, how, like John was saying, yes, these episodes are super reference packed with like not the most common references, but at the same time, you not knowing them or not even realizing that they are references does not affect your viewing of the show. And I think that's what makes the writing so great, because it doesn't bother you. Like you're if you have no clue, you just kind of glaze over it. And it was one of my favorite segments of the Gilmore Guys podcast, where like every episode they did a super cut of all the pop culture references in that episode at the beginning. And I don't remember when they started that, but somewhere through that became a thing that they did. And it was crazy because there were so many things where I was like, I didn't know that was a reference. You know, even being somebody who was the same age as Rory, there's so many references that are more of like Lorelai's time or older. And I was somebody who didn't grow up with a ton of like pop culture. Like was not allowed to watch, you know, popular movies when I was young and things like that. So it was always very interesting to me. But I did want to say, like, as somebody who grew up in New York City, the whole like going into the city thing was always kind of funny to me, because even though we lived that close, you would never do something like that. That's so obviously like incredibly dangerous to like leave.
I've also seen the references flipped the other way. There's been a few things in there which I've seen a few of my American friends go, what the hell, when it's so common over here. Like one of them's the banana sandwich from which Emily made Lorelai. That's something I ate all the time as a kid. And I don't know if that's an Irish or British thing, but also with the uniform in the second episode, she goes, oh, there's a comment about a uniform. That's so standard over here that hearing that was also weird. So the references go two ways, I think. There's stuff that we really don't understand as international folks, but then there's some stuff where it's just like, that's weird for you, that's strange for you, that's like our normal.
Everybody, I have to go now, but thank you. It was so nice to talk to you. Goodbye.
Bye. It was so nice to meet you.
Bye, Gotcha.
As a German, it's interesting for me to watch it now and see how many Nazi jokes there are in the show already in the first episodes. And I think, okay, that's what we Germans are known for.
I know that is.
That's a question I've wanted to ask you before, because like, it must be. I don't know how it must feel to watch that.
I mean, that's something that when Babsy first started to visit me here in the U.S., we talked a lot about like how just Germany and Nazi just it's just a part. It's a strange part of our pop culture for whatever reason.
But you have to remember too that Amy and Dan are Jewish as well, so I think that's maybe why it's a little more prominent. I could be wrong, but
I think it's very common in media. You know, Nazi jokes are just a part of Hollywood, and have been, I guess, you know, for decades. And because of it, yeah, I think it does. I mean, obviously, media has an impact on pop culture, right? So so then it does sort of, to a degree, taint the perception of Germans. Claudia, what were you going to say? You're flashing your mic.
Yeah, as Gilmore Girls started, it was 2000, and several friends of mine visited around that time the USA, and they all came back and said, you cannot believe it, but I was asked several times throughout my vacation in the USA how great Hitler is, and that he's doing a great job, and they were thinking he's still like our leader in the 2000s, and we were like, that's a joke, and it happened again and again, and I was like, what the fuck? Sorry, but I couldn't believe someone was thinking.
I studied German, and I only studied it about 7 years ago, and it was still really prominent then in the UK, studying German. And I was just like, I can't believe this, because I did history as well. So I was like, I can't believe this is still people still people still questions about him. But I suppose I studied German and history.
They thought he's still our leader, not he was in the World War II. They thought he's still like ruling Germany in the year 2000. And that was really shocking, because it was World War II. How can you not know he's dead in the year 2000?
Honestly, really, that just goes to show how horrible American public education is. If you want,
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking the same. Like, most people don't think that, but also people are stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like most people don't think that in big cities. I would say that that there are a lot of people in the United States. I mean, the U.S. is a huge population, so sadly, there are a lot of people who do think that, and it does go to show that the U.S. definitely has some public education lagging.
Well, I mean, that kind of goes like oh my gosh, never mind. We're not gonna get.
Yeah, no. I don't want to go down that road. We're loving Gilmore Girls, and that's what we should be focused on.
I think it just shows how interesting it is to have a show beloved through the whole world, even if you're not living in that culture. It's like a lot of things, as Amy said, a lot of things I saw and wondered, like, really? That's not a thing? It's so common here. Or the other way around. And it's like, if you watch the show in 2000, I just started to go online in the year 2000. I wasn't in the internet before. So it was a thing you didn't know, you weren't able to look it up. It was more like, is it real? Is it not real? Is it real? And it took much years longer to find out what is in the show, what is real American, and what is just fiction.
It's interesting hearing everyone's views and takes on the shows, considering we're all in different places. You know, I'm in the UK, Claudia's Germany, you're all from different places in the States. I think someone here was from Poland. It's interesting seeing how every culture takes a show like this and sees it in a different light, because these references all kind of mean something slightly different to different people. So I think I love coming together and talking about it and seeing what people think, because we all have a completely different take on the show and the references just based on where we live and grow up.
Sorry.